Good morning, everyone. Hot water ಉಂಟು ತಂದಿಡಕ್ಕೆ ಹುಡುಗರು ಏನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ
Good morning, everyone. A very good morning, everyone. I'm Uma, Assistant Professor, Department of Mathematics, Bangalore Institute of Technology, Bengaluru. A very pleasant morning to everyone who are all part of this virtual FDP sponsored by AICTE Atal on artificial intelligence and conceptualization of algorithm using Python, organized by Department of Mathematics, BIT, Bengaluru. As all are aware, this virtual gathering is to give a kickstart with this learning process. It is our pleasure to have such eminent and esteemed personalities witnessing this inaugural event. Let's respectfully welcome them. On behalf of our Honorable Management, Rajya Okkaligara Sangha, beloved Principal and Department of Mathematics, BIT, I request Dr. K.M. Rupa Madam, Professor and Head, Department of Mathematics, and the Chief Coordinator of this FDP. I request you to deliver welcome address and also to highlight about this FDP. Please, Madam.
Thank you, Uma. Good morning, everyone. Have a great honor and pleasure to welcome you all for the AICTE Atal sponsored online one-week faculty development program on artificial intelligence and conceptualization of algorithms using Python, being organized by the Department of Mathematics, Bangalore Institute of Technology. It is my great pleasure to welcome our respected administrator, Rajya Okkaligara Sangha, Sri Kari Gowda, IAS, who is here with us in spite of his busy schedule. He has been the source of inspiration and encouragement for organizing this program. It is my honor to welcome our esteemed CEO, Rajya Okkaligara Sangha, Dr. C. Siddharamaya, KGS retired, for this inaugural program. Welcome you, sir. I take this opportunity to welcome our beloved principal of BIT, Dr. Ashwath MU, who has provided all the required support and cooperation for organizing this program. Once again, welcome you, sir. My special welcome to all the officers of AICTE Atal who have given this opportunity to organize this FDP. My hearty welcome to all the heads of the departments, PG coordinators, my colleagues from the department, and all the faculty of BIT. My special hearty welcome to all the delegates who have registered for this program. I wish to inform that this FDP, sponsored by AICTE Atal, is for 5 days from 12th to 16th of this month. Each day will have 3 sessions, and in total, 14 distinguished presentation has been organized by the experts in the field. As stipulated by AICTE Atal, 200 participants from across the country have registered for this program. Once again, hearty welcome to you all. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. I extend a warm welcome to you, madam, to this inaugural event. One tree can start a forest, one candle can wipe out darkness. A true leader has the confidence to stand alone, the courage to make decisions, and the compassion to listen to all effort. This quote suits to our beloved principal. I now request our beloved principal, Dr. M.U. Ashwath, sir, to deliver inaugural address. Please, sir.
Good morning. Thank you very much for inviting me to inaugurate this program. In fact, our Chief Patron Sri Karigoda, Administrator RVS, and Dr. C. Siddaramaiah were supposed to be here. Maybe they will join a little later and address the participants. I'm very happy that the Bangalore Institute of Technology is organizing this Atal-sponsored one-week faculty development program on artificial intelligence and conceptualization of algorithms using Python. All of you know that the AICTE is taking a lot of interest in the faculty development programs in the last few years. In fact, Atal scheme itself, there are a lot of programs conducted, and our chairman AICTE, Sri Sahasrabuddhe, is again and again telling in various platforms and addressing the university vice chancellors and principals of engineering colleges in general that the soul of any organization is the faculty, and the faculty should update themselves with the industrial requirements and the modern trends. A lot of things are happening in the industry, and a lot of focus is given by the various government schemes and AICTE schemes. Unless faculty get themselves upgraded to the latest technologies and tools, it is very difficult to train the student community. In fact, all of you know that the whole focus of teaching learning has changed. A paradigm shift has taken place in the last few years, what we call it as outcome-based education. And for that purpose, we need to have a proper scale to measure the outcomes. And in this direction, the faculty development programs organized by various organizations, including university level, are helping the faculty in creating a very good environment at the institution levels. In fact, due to this pandemic, the number of programs organized through online mechanism, online platforms has increased, and even at our institute, Bangalore Institute of Technology, we have organized many programs. Each department, I can say, not less than 10 to 15 programs have been organized, both for faculty and for the student community. Not only for our institute, but for open to all other organizations. And the student community is also encouraged to conduct various activities. In fact, at Bangalore Institute of Technology, we have more than 30 student support activity clubs. Through those clubs, students are also organizing various general lectures as well as technical lectures, a lot of competitions, project exhibitions. So whatever is necessary for them to get trained for the requirement of the industry, we have been organizing. As all of us know, the overall personality development of the student is very essential in the current situation. Most important thing is we need to instill the confidence which is required for them to create their career is very essential. So in this respect, any number of programs organized through such support from the schemes of AICTE are very essential. And we at Bangalore Institute of Technology take all the necessary steps, and all our faculty are motivated enough to train our students, and they are also learning day in and day out. In fact, in the last few years, our faculty members are also getting a lot of certification programs through the various SWAYAM portals, NPTEL, Coursera, like that, many programs, not only in theoretical subjects, but also in the laboratory aspects. Our faculty are very actively involved in the virtual labs, and some of our faculty are also creating a lot of animated experiments for the students' benefit. And all this information is also available in our website. And BIT is one of the premier institution in the country who have taken a lot of interest as and when required. And we also initiate a lot of programs for the students to develop their employability skills and confidence building programs. So I'm sure all the faculty are attending this program will get a lot of value addition at the end of 1 week, and they will be able to address the issues connected with artificial intelligence and conceptualization of algorithms using Python. This is a new trend that everyone is talking about. In fact, many of the engineering colleges have started artificial intelligence and machine learning programs, artificial intelligence and data science programs. So in the days to come, there will be a lot of applications of these concepts, and irrespective of the branch the faculty is studying in, I think artificial intelligence is going to be a very effective medium to provide a lot of solutions to the society. So in this direction, I wish the organizing committee for taking the efforts in organizing this program. And I thank on behalf of Rajya Vakaligar Sangha and Bangalore Institute of Technology, the Atal scheme itself. Our chairman, Dr. Anil Sahasrabudhe, has taken a lot of initiatives in this direction. So the initiatives taken by the AICTE will definitely help all the faculty to upskill their knowledge in the upcoming streams, and definitely the knowledge learned through these schemes will transfer to the student community, and I'm sure students will be benefited the learnings from this program. So thank you, Dr. Rupa, for you and your team for taking efforts in organizing this program. I think certainly, so our administrator will send his words of wishes to all of you. Sri Karigowda, IAS officer, he has sent his words of wishes to all of you. So participants, most important thing is you need to interact with the speakers through the day-long program, and at the end there will be a quick and short examination also. I hope all of you will do well and attend all the programs continuously, and at the end you will also do well. So I wish all of you all the best, and my special thanks on behalf of BIT to all the resource persons who have agreed to share their experiences in this new area. And I'm sure the participants will get benefited from the resource persons. So on behalf of RVS and BIT, I thank all the resource persons, especially the first session is from TN Nagbhushan. Thank you, sir, for joining us, and maybe I will join and interact with you during the question and answer session. Thank you, Professor Rupa, and over to you.
Thank you, sir, for addressing the participants and for all the support you have given to organize this FDP. In the absence of our administrator, Mr. Karigowda IAS, Rajya Vakaligar Sangha, I thank him for his words, his wishes, and all the support he has given to organize this. I now request Professor Soumya G. Ma'am, Assistant Professor, Department of Mathematics, and coordinator of this FDP to propose vote of thanks.
Thank you, Uma. I, Soumyaji, Department of Mathematics, on behalf of entire fraternity of Bangalore Institute of Technology, deem it to be my pleasure to give vote of thanks for this 1 week of online faculty development program. I would like to place on record a heartfelt thank you to AICTE Training and Learning Academy, who has entrusted to conduct this program into the hands of Department of Mathematics, Bangalore Institute of Technology. My sincere thanks to our Chief Patron, Sri Karigowda, Indian Administrative Service, as well as Administrator of Rajya Vakaligar Sangha, who has been a great influence to take up challenges and opportunities of learning. I would extend my thanks to Dr. C. Sidramaya, who is our Chief Executive Officer of Rajya Okkaligara Sangha, for his guidance for conducting such workshops. A profound thank you to our beloved principal, Dr. M.U. Ashwath, who has constantly fueled his energy and ideas to achieve greater success to the institution. My eternal thank you to Dr. K.M. Rupa, Head of Department of Mathematics, who as a coordinator for this program passionately looked into every detail of this program and executing it to its best. My humblest thanks to all the speakers of this one-week faculty development program who are the stellars to this program. We definitely wait to have them here. A big shout out and thank you to all the coordinators and organizing committee members who have rendered their tireless support so as to conduct this program so beautifully. Definitely a universe of thankful to all our participants to this faculty development program. Without your active participation, such online programs can never reach our common goal. That is to learn for a better knowledge. Finally, I thank Almighty God who has protected us and connected all of us on this online platform during this pandemic. Thank you all once again.
Thank you, Soumya ma'am, for rendering the vote of thanks. I take this opportunity to thank all the participants for the successful completion of this inaugural event. So now it's time to start learning. Our first session is on importance of mathematics and artificial intelligence, which covers mathematical perspectives of supervised learning and neural network by Professor T.N. Nagabhushan sir, Department of Information Science and Engineering, SJCE, Mysuru. I now request Prashanta Kumar sir, Associate Professor, Department of Mathematics, BIT, and co-coordinator of this FDP, to introduce our eminent speaker. Please, sir.
Good morning to all participants. Good morning to everybody. I'm Mr. Prashant Kumar, Associate Professor in the Department of Mathematics, BIT. So I find extreme pleasure to introduce the eminent speaker of the session, Dr. J. Nagbhushan, sir. And sir is incidentally from the cultural and heritage capital of Karnataka, that is Mysore city. Sir has completed his bachelor degree from SJCE Mysore in 1984 and obtained his master's degree and also doctorate from the prestigious Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore. It is also called as the Tata Institute, well known for all Bangaloreans. And it's a very prestigious institute. Sir has got his master degree and his doctorate from this institute. So, sir has got very vast experience in the field of teaching. So, as a doctoral guide, administrator, he's worked as a professor, as an HOD, and a special officer of PTU. In fact, he has worked as principal not only of JCE and also JSS Institute in the Noida. And now at present, he is working as senior professor and superintendent in JSS University, in the same place where he has graduated. So he has got a lot of academic and credits to his name. And the sir has taught nearly 18 courses for the undergraduate and postgraduate students. And sir has credited 73 publications, 22 journals, articles, and 51 conference papers to his credit. So Dr. Nagbhushan has got grant from prestigious Microsoft India and Nokia India for his innovative projects during his career. And his major research area is mobile learning algorithms and architectures. And Sir has visited many foreign universities in the capacity of visiting professor and as a foreign scholar. And one notable thing is he was visiting professor of Korea University, Seoul from March to August 2007. And he has got a very rewarding appreciation from the Cambridge University. He was as the best engineering professional by International Biographical Center, Cambridge, UK in 2010. And he has got a lot of experience, and that is very helpful to the us, that is the participants. Now, I wholeheartedly welcome the professor to this session. And in this session, he talks about the AI present and past, present, and future. So thank you, sir, and welcome, sir. And I hand over to you, sir. So carry on, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Prashant sir, for introducing our eminent speaker. I now request all our beloved participants to mute your mic and also to turn off your camera. So to avoid the inconvenience to the speaker and also the fellow participants. I now request our eminent speaker to take over the session. Please, sir.
One minute, I will finish. So am I audible? Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay. So very good morning to all of you, and respected principal, DIT, Dr. Rupa, head of the Department of Mathematics, and all the officials of the Rajya Vakkaligari Sangha and office bearers and the faculty of PIT, and more importantly, the participants of from different institutions from across the country. A very good morning to all of you. I've been asked to speak on the important topic that everyone is here afterwards, basically going to talk about the artificial intelligence and machine learning and their impact and so on. So a lot of work has been going on, and new courses have been introduced, as already said. So in this context, the subject is very relevant, and the Department of Mathematics have chosen very carefully the word that now they are trying to look into the algorithms, basically artificial intelligence algorithms, and then how to write codes using Python and so on. So when you come to algorithms, you need to really understand the logic and also mathematics. So this is a very huge field. I have been, planning to give talk on mathematics of machine learning, specifically with respect to the supervised learning, which is, finding innumerable applications. Before that, to give a gentle foundation to this overall course running for 5 days, it is essential to understand the talk into 2 different phases. The first talk is about the artificial intelligence past, present, and future. So this will give a solid foundations to each one of you to really think beyond what you know and try to look at what all possibilities that are available for us to explore as faculty members, and also how you can really train the students for future ready engineers. So this is very important. So therefore the next entire talk will be more or less general, starting from some of the things which are already known to some of the things which are really happening right away, and some of the things which are going to get developed in the future. So therefore we are the important people because we are actually sitting on the threshold of transformation of technology. We are required to train the students. So therefore, as the principal very clearly mentioned, that it is the faculty members who are the icons of any higher education systems, because they need to work as facilitators today. So contrary to the teacher-centric education, the 21st century education will be totally student-centric. So we want to see that every student definitely is able to get the skill and the knowledge and be useful to the society. We do not want any student to really go as a waste. So with this team, I just start actually giving you the foundation of artificial intelligence, past, present, and future directions. So this is a very broad coverage of the entire subject in a nutshell. And the next session, after 11:30 to another 2 hours, I will be talking about the machine learning part, paving foundations for many of the speakers who are going to develop algorithms and teach you many of the coding aspects and so on, as planned by the course organizers. So most of them are very, very eminent speakers in the system. So therefore, I just serve as a kind of an interface between the advanced coding level and also advanced topics people are covering about, to the level where our faculty members are quite comfortable. I will serve the 2 lectures will serve as a kind of a bridge. So therefore, I want all of you to keep your minds wide open and listen to the talk. And if there are any questions, definitely we'll take up once the talk is over. Okay. So again, thank you very much, Dr. Rupa and team. Now I will start actually making presentation on the subject artificial intelligence, past, present, and future. So the agenda will be the same here. Okay. Now, as all of you know, that the artificial intelligence, people know by different definitions what is artificial intelligence, how we can really do that, and so on. There are many definitions given by many people in the book, which are recorded in the book as it is. It is the intelligence exhibited by the machines. So in computer science, intelligent machine is flexible a rational agent, and it pursues its environment and take actions to maximize the success. Okay, and it is also, another word actually definition that it is applied when a machine mimics cognitive functions that all of us have. So that means it should be able to learn on its own and should be able to behave like a human being and so on. So therefore, it should be able to learn and then do things in a way that all humans do. This is the dictionary meaning which is given there. So the capabilities of the current artificial intelligence at present, it is able to understand the human speech. So all of us basically are beneficiaries of this technology. The most advanced topics all of us are enjoying is, the understanding of the human speech. So for example, if you go to Alexa or Siri or Cortana, you speak, it will understand and comes back with a reply and response to you. So, natural language understanding powered by AI is one of the greatest success in today. And already all of us have heard about even seen actually self-driving cars. And, a lot of developments have also taken place in other directions like, game of chess and so on. So AI basically refers to systems designed to learn, solve problems, and interact with humans using natural language processing. So that means I should be able to speak in a native language, and the machine should be able to understand and interpret and take actions as appropriate in a way similar to the human being, sometimes better than the human being also. So this artificial intelligence, what actually we are trying to do is that, we invest effort to develop computer-based systems that behave like humans, learn languages, and accomplish, physical tasks. So these are some of the things already recorded in the book. This is a kind of foundation I'm presenting. Use a perceptual apparatus and emulate human thinking. Ultimately, the machines, should be able to think like a human being. So this is the main crux of the whole artificial intelligence about keeping aside all other developments that are taking place. This particular topic is, the interest in, the whole topic is how we can make the machine, interesting and it's able to really think. So AI has several branches, like, it is able to provide solutions to the natural language processing, robotics, perceptive systems, expert systems, etc., and intelligent machines, and so on. Human capabilities, if you look into that, even a layman should be able to understand, many of the things. He has got an insight, he has creativity, and he can create alternatives. And, he is having a lot of cognitive capabilities without, education. He can perform many things, which if we want to do on the machine, takes quite a lot of time. As gradually we'll see, it is not easy even to really make the machine understand how we can really understand the speeches and the images most of us are basically doing in the laboratory. Computer processing and capabilities are today, it can handle large volumes of data, okay, detect noises, okay, and also it's tireless and so on. So computer capabilities are consistent, objective, and selective perception, not distracted, and so minimum downtime. These are all advantages. So the best applications that you can see the artificial intelligence playing a vital role in a Siri application, and Cortana by Microsoft, Alexa by Amazon, and so on. Now looking into the past, very important thing, with a small gentle review, artificial intelligence, how it started, it's very interesting because I believe that many of the futuristic applications need to take a relook into what actually the artificial intelligence was, earlier, and how it actually unfolded and contributed by many people. It's worth recalling, so to have a good foundation. So I will take you back to 1300 BC to the 20th century, how actually the artificial intelligence started. Intelligence was thought to be exhibited by those who win the ancient games. So playing game was actually regarded as one of the most fascinating things in the past when no computers were available. And game playing obviously require excellent domain knowledge and skill to operate. So game playing, the person who wins the game, used to be regarded as highly intellectual and so on. So if you look into the, one of the games which all of us basically, familiar in artificial intelligence, tic-tac-toe. So it was 1330 BC, and it's a 3x3 grid. Okay, and a player who succeeds in placing his symbol in horizontal, vertical, and diagonal is declared as a winner. Okay, and each player has 9, factorial ways. So these are, 3,62,880 possibilities improved by. So this is actually the whole idea how they were playing in the ancient times. Now this was actually coded as an algorithm, and the artificial intelligence books we have the algorithms, and in 1960 it was written as a reinforcement learning, and robot was designed in 1988 by University of Toronto. Looking into the artificial intelligence again, 384 to 322 BC. If you look into the philosopher Aristotle, he touched upon several topics which are still useful today. He speculated that one day automatons would replace humans slaves. He also set good foundations on logic. Then abacus, is also being taught in many schools today to create intelligent, boys. It performed cognitive tasks, no need for any memorization. It is the most important tool for all the time in the human civilization. Still used, in Japan, Russia, and China. It set the tone for the development of modern computer. Then comes actually the Boolean algebra. All of us are basically teaching in all the classes, today. In George Boole in 1815 to 1864, is regarded as an early thinker of artificial intelligence. He explained that all the human thoughts could be represented as mathematical rules, and machine could be developed to perform them. So this is the one of the basic foundations. And Boole published his entitled "In Investigations in the Laws of Thought," on which are founded the mathematical theories of logic and probability. See, these are all very, very important, contributions. And Shannon extended the Boole's work and founded the Divergence laws and used them for solving telephone routing problems earlier. Then the Tower of Hanai is another important, example that all of us basically teach in artificial intelligence course. So it has got, a system of, pawns where we need to replace them appropriately. Initially, one peg has all the disks. The goal is to transfer the disk to other peg such that smaller disk cannot be placed on the larger disk. The problem is to be solved as early as possible. So this is still taught in, AI classes, and we ask them to write programs. So if you look into the literature of artificial intelligence development from BC to the AD today, so a lot of significant contributions like listed in this, have happened. So if you trace the literature, various people have contributed to the growth of artificial intelligence in its own way. So you look into the, again, 8x8 puzzle. So the problem is that, this 8 puzzle. So consider the following problem. Suppose if you take the water jug problem, and there are 2 jugs for 4 gallon and 3 gallon, and how you can get 2 gallons in the 4 gallon jug. So this is the algorithm that you are going to really put, and this is how we can write a program and so on. So what we want to really look at from all these things is that, there is an element of thinking actually. That's what I want to, draw from all these presentations, though there are exhaustive, very few I have taken. But if you look into the way that how these advances have taken place, it is basically kind of thinking about the problem, thinking about the knowledge, thinking about how we can really solve. This kind of thinking, kept on increasing, as more and more fascination got in, and more applications were actually, came into the existence. So game playing, continued to really receive more attention from those people who were able to think more and more and try to win the game. So the question is that, artificial intelligence, then how we can really, make ourselves, how we can define artificial intelligence is one of the key part in the present context. Can we really call a person who is intelligent, who is able to tell the answer quickly, or the person who is knowledgeable, and so on. So in a complex biological system, the thinking, in a natural thinking, all of us basically, when some question is asked, actually, we are going to answer it. Before answering, without our knowledge, the brain start actually thinking. Thinking on what? Thinking on the problem domain. So thinking basically, are you able to hear? Is there any problem? I'm audible?
Audible,
Yes,
sir. Audible, sir.
Okay. So thinking is, yeah. So
Audible,
thinking
sir.
is, thank you. Thinking is very important. So suppose if I ask a questions to you, how do you think? So you cannot really answer. It's an open question. No one knows basically how we think. This is very simple statement, but we do not know. But it's a complex biological process in which, we start actually thinking. In computer science, when we start actually talking thinking, it is equivalent to searching in the database, in the knowledge base. So the brain has the knowledge base, and whenever a question is encountered, it starts thinking and trying to pick up the answer, link it and present it in appropriate way. So therefore, this thinking is very critical, and knowledge is also another important thing. So you need to store the knowledge, you need to have thinking. So therefore, if you want to make the machine intelligent, two important components are essential. One is the knowledge, domain knowledge, like how we actually store the knowledge and get all the world knowledge in us, and then when we encounter a question, how we can answer. So this the same way we want to make the machine store the knowledge, and also ability to think and retrieve the piece of information and present it in a nice way. So this is the genesis of artificial intelligence in a very small scale. Suppose if I ask a question, C is equal to root of a square plus b square, which theorem it is. So we have taught actually to the student that it is a square is equal to b square plus c square, but we never actually told C is equal to root of a square plus b square. But the knowledge that we know that there is a square root, and therefore we say that it is Pythagoras theorem. For the computer, unless you tell that it is C is equal to root of a square plus b square, it is not possible. So therefore, what is most important here is that the knowledge that we are going to represent on the machine is very important. The machine has a very limited knowledge. Interpretation from the knowledge is very, very difficult. So therefore, for all these years, artificial intelligence grew from very small primitive game applications to larger applications, whatever we are seeing today. It is because the developments in knowledge representation, the extraction of the knowledge, and so on. So therefore, this is very important, very important concept, that the knowledge representation is very important, first hand. And second thing is that how we can really make the machine think. Thinking machine is nothing but reasoning. We want to give the reason why we have taken, why we have really arrived at a particular solution, and so on. So this is also very important for us. So therefore, the next phase, when we want to understand AI, how knowledge could be represented on the machine. Again, it is very important concept. So earlier, the predicate logic was actually developed. Means you have given a comprehension and you want to represent as a knowledge base. So instead of database, we transform this into a knowledge base. So for example, Rama killed Ravana. So therefore, I can write this as a predicate. Killed is the action verb. Rama and Ravana climbed John Everest. So like that, we can use the action verbs, and within X and Y, killed X, within a bracket X and Y can be different, people. So like that, people develop the knowledge representation using predicate logic and try to answer the question, who killed whom, and so on. Then actually we came across what are known as semantic networks and conceptual dependency and scripts. These are all actually taught in the class. So if you look into the semantic networks, it is basically representing a kind of a relation network about everything totally. So a person is a mammal, a person has a pot head, and is an instant. Mike Hall is an instance. Okay, like that, we have different, implications, and we can always write the semantic network for any concept and then code it in a specific language, like Lisp and Prolog that we used to do during our days. So these are all different semantic networks that you can really look at. Mammal is an animal, it's an vertebrate, and cat, cat is a mammal, cat has a fur, and like that, we can connect all this, by links, and then write a complete code actually and answer the question, what is what? The conceptual dependency is very important, development in the early stages of AI. So representation of meaning using symbols. So we have many languages across the world, but whatever we do, whenever we speak in a particular language, the meaning remains same. So it is nothing but the actions, it's nothing but the concept. So the cognitive actions basically are same irrespective of the language that we are trying to do, whether we speak in Japan or Japanese or Spanish or English or Hindi, it is same, the action is same. So people actually, try to develop what is known as conceptual dependency and represented the whole meaning actually in terms of certain symbols and try to code them. This is how actually the whole idea of AI was developed in the early 1950s. Then came actually an expert system. Then expert system basically started in 1983, and people wrote programs, computer programs, and they used what is known as inference procedures. So the first program was actually called Mycin, which was used to diagnose the childhood diseases. So you captured all the human expertise, and the expertise is basically stored as a complete knowledge base, and there are queries, if then kind of rules, and then therefore there is an answer for that. Okay, and this is a kind of a model which was used earlier to solve many of the mission critical problems. So components of an expert systems are basically you need to have a knowledge base, you need to have facts and rules, and knowledge acquisition is most important about whatever you're trying to do. And then you have the inference engine, which is critical, then recombination, then users and explanation. So all these components were integrated actually to develop many products. So the expert systems became very useful in some of the applications like nuclear fuel refilling in the reactors and so on. So they managed, and even in spacecrafts and so on. It became a very popular kind of a thing. But the bottleneck for this particular component was acquisition of the knowledge was not easy. We were not actually able to get the complete knowledge about the problem domain, and then we can develop an expert system for a small application. For larger applications, the domain knowledge is not always complete. So we as a human being, we collect all knowledge from varieties of sources and try to answer them, but it is to be very domain specific. So this is how the whole system basically developed. So the expert systems rules induced from example cases were taken. It's called inductive logic. Then you have individual cases applied to the rules. Then you have deductive logic, which basically gives the classified through deduction. Then applications, if you look into the modern applications of AI, coming away from this totally, how important expert system is all about, looking into the complexity of some of the applications that we are likely practicing today. Suppose if you look into the United States, there are several aircrafts, and all the airports are totally filled actually with the aircrafts and takeoff and landing. It's a very mission critical applications, and the severity if something goes wrong. So the gate assignment, is one of the important mission critical applications where software is developed and successfully utilized. So there are they are using different aircrafts, different sizes of aircraft does matter, because the capacity is very important, because gate assignment depends on the number of passengers going out and also getting in. So there are other aircrafts like Lockheed 252 capacity, and Transworld, this is Boeing 67 to 27. This just to show that different capacities of the aircrafts. So we have aircrafts, and this is a particular airport terminal. So we want to assign the aircraft so that now we want to ensure that the aircraft, once it's landed, it has to go to the particular gate, depending on the passengers and also depending on other parameters which are very critical. So in a busy airport like John F. Kennedy Airport or Changi Airport and our Emirates Dubai, So you have aircrafts landing and taking off every minute. You have aircraft landing and taking. Such a busy airport, and also getting into the terminal is also very important. Otherwise, it will cause frustration and inconvenience. So therefore, gate assignment is regarded as one of the classic problems of machine learning and the expert system. So the matching size of the aircraft to the gate is one constraint, and there are 8 different types of aircrafts. Okay, minimizing the distance between connecting flights, because many people want to go for different gates for other countries and other cities, and you need to have foreign and domestic aircrafts which are to be placed in the respective gates. Constraints without exceptions, and you need to look into the gate size. Constraints with exceptions if you look into the domestic and international. And also you want to look at the changing tolerance and turnaround time. This is also very important. People will be annoyed otherwise. They do not want to sit in the aircraft for a long time. So you want to look into other important thing, the taxiway congestion, how many aircrafts are coming on the landing and taking off, convenience of constraints, and time between the flights is also very important. So distance between the connecting flight is also another important thing, because many people may have very short time to catch up. Other flights are going through checkup and so on. So if you look into this gate assignment problem, as you increase the complexity, it is going to be very difficult kind of a program to develop a program and to operate in real time. So therefore, the expert systems comes handy, and present day operating the expert systems are in operation in almost all airports. The task of scheduling the gate assignment for a month is reduced from 15 hours to 30 seconds. That means manually it was very difficult, and expert systems became very important tools, and most airports are using it. So the benefits are many. So it's a decrease in time, and you have the susceptibility of schedules and so on. So it's created a lot of advantages to both the people who are operating the airport and also the passengers. So these are all the benefits. Managers can review and so on. Another example is that you want to use expert systems for banking applications, for example. So you want to check whether there is a overdraft or not. You want to really classify. So how to issue a overdraft applications. So check unpaid and check are paid. So you want to check these. So therefore you want to collect all the data. So if he's a regular payer and he's good and he has got multiple accounts, you pay it. And if he's a student and if his records are not really very very good actually, then you don't actually pay it. So therefore, looking into that, the different cases, you can either make the expert system issue a check, issue a draft, or reject it depending on the situations and so on. So reasons for using expert systems: they are consistent and they can work 24/7. So many advantages. Definitely, these are all known to all of us. So reduced downtime and cheaper than experts. Integrations to multiple expert opinion can be taken. So these are all advantages of expert systems. The limitation is that one is cost, and most importantly the knowledge. The knowledge is most critical. Okay, so therefore getting the knowledge is also one of the important thing for successful deployment of expert systems and so on. So where we want to use expert system is where there is very reduced risk, need to replace the experts, because experts are not available today. So only expert systems can be consistent and can be used wherever we want. So need more consistency than humans, and expertise needed at various locations at the same time. Hostile environment, dangers to human health, like refilling the nuclear reactor and checking certain conditions in a nuclear reactor, like that expert systems definitely work. Even in aircraft, it is the expert systems which are going which are operating so well in all aircrafts. At any time, you can see thousands of aircrafts actually flying in the space, and they are able to perform well. Even landing and takeoff is controlled by the expert systems. So if you look into the AI at present today, that is the past. If you look into the present, in the the Watson, is a huge success in IBM. They have developed a complete machine learning general model, and they are able to provide the space for most of the people who want to work on Watson through IBM. And their, their AI and Mars mission basically used this, Watson, and we have implemented the surgery through a robot, which basically uses the artificial intelligence. And Ruby Cube, solution is pretty easy. Most of you must have seen in WhatsApp, many people are sharing and so on. So now that actually deep learning is replacing, is becoming a kind of buzzword, trying to get into the tools in the commercial products that we are going to see in this next few talks. So neural computing, evolutionary computing, fuzzy logic, and expert systems. So they are the outgrowth of artificial intelligence. So knowledge representation was actually earlier. That is why I actually started with knowledge representation, because any intelligence could only be achieved if you are able to gather the knowledge. What are the different ways in which we can gather the knowledge is most critical, right? So therefore, a comprehensive understanding of AI come from acquiring the domain knowledge and then trying to do some kind of searching in order to retrieve the piece of information to solve the problem. That is how basically we need to really do. Naturally, we grew like that because we were taught in the school, we learned from environment, but through interactions, we acquire the knowledge and we face the exams by writing the answer, and then we made success. In a similar way, we want to do the same thing or emulate similar kind of experiences into the machine. And the knowledge representation, which was good actually earlier, like predicate logic or semantic networks, conceptual dependency, did not yield much fruit. So that gave rise to new avenues like a neural computing, new way of acquiring knowledge and then giving an answer. Evolutionary computing, again, new way of looking at the new knowledge and then giving an answer. Fuzzy logic and expert systems, these are all new ideas which are actually coming from. So therefore, the theme is pick up inventions and develop innovations. So this neural computing, evolutionary computing, fuzzy logic, and expert system, they are some kind of a new inventions that we need to deploy them for our own local applications. That is innovation. So what I would say is that research is nothing but some people have invented dots in the space which are invisible. There are plenty of dots. And innovation is how you are going to connect those dots to find an application. So therefore, you need to really toggle between inventions and innovations to create newer applications. I would say that again, Gandhian engineering, a buzzword which looks very simple, but the ideas are plenty. Why I basically call it as a Gandhian engineering is that we want to look at simple innovations which can really reach out to the mass. So Gandhiji basically is synonym for that. So what actually I'm trying to tell is there was a talk actually by the then former chairman of UGC, Mashelkar. He was awarded the Australia's best civilian award for his contribution to science and technology. And he was asked to speak on a subject, and he presented the idea of Gandhian engineering. So Gandhiji traveled across the country. From history we know, and he found that cotton was grown abundantly, and this was exported to Britain, and then we used to buy the cloths made out of them, right? So this is something which is already known. So, and at the same time, India's rich in forest wood was available, and Gandhiji invented charaka. Charaka is his invention, and this charaka, could be made easily in all villages. So the idea that he invented charaka and showed to the people that he can weave the thread. So that became a bread and butter for millions of people, and we became indigenous. So small idea that a charaka and a cotton, thread, generation is becoming a kind of an industry in all local villages and reach out to the mass. So this is basically the Gandhian engineering is a concept that we want to look at simple ideas which can reach out to the mass. And definitely we have thousands of such applications which are not visible today, and we can really make it through Make in India applications and Atmanirbhar Bharat missions of Government of India. So AI present status, if you look into that, if you look into the Facebook, what we have here, so we have about, look into the statistics, 1,36,000 photos are uploaded per minute. and 293,000 status updates per minute. And we have 800 different languages support given by this. So such a massive applications, even common man is able to take a photograph on the smartphone he or she process and upload, download, and change the status and so on. So it's a kind of a routine
Sir,
thing.
excuse me, sir. Excuse
Yeah.
me, sir. Please stop your presentation if you don't mind, sir. Maybe recording is problem. Just a minute, sir, if you don't mind. Just one minute, sir.
Yeah,
One
please,
minute,
please,
sir.
please.
Excuse me, sir.
Yeah,
There
please.
was an audio issue. Participants were telling that they were not able to hear you. So we are rectifying the problem, sir. Could you wait for 1 more minute?
Yeah, please. But my audio is correct, right? I'm hearing you.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. From my side, I'm hearing you, sir. But in the chat box, some of the participants have put me the
ಇಲ್ಲ
message.
ಕೇಳಿಸಲ್ಲ ನೀನ್ ವಾಯ್ಸ್ ಕೇಳಿಸ್ತಾ ಇಲ್ಲ
Yeah,
ಅವ್ರು
please.
ಕೇಳಿ ನೀನ್ ವಾಯ್ಸ್ ಕೇಳಿಸ್ತಾ ಇದೆ
Cut your end.
Okay, please, sir. Could you wait, sir?
Yeah, please.
Okay, thank you, sir. And dear participants, please do confirm. Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, madam.
Okay. Okay. Thank you for the confirmation. Sir, please go ahead, sir. Thank you.
Okay. So we have the Facebook, which all of us basically are using. This is the glimpses on day-to-day uploads per minute and so on. It's a variation. There's a variation, and you can see that there is an increase in the number of usages of the photos, uploading, and status tagging and so on, commenting. So the kind of applications and the easiness with which we are doing, definitely it cannot be run by sequential learning algorithms. You need to really have AI applications to support the user experience. If the user is basically annoyed, he definitely will not really go for that. So all these applications are the outcome of AI, artificial intelligence, and so on. So deep learning is a tool in Facebook. Okay, the present status. Deep learning is one of the tool in the Facebook. It takes care of understanding the objects in the images by themselves. So therefore, we do in computer science, object recognition. Not only object recognition, but within the image, you need to detect smaller objects. So that is why you need the help of AI and machine learning. Recognize the voice of persons and understand the context in the given sentence, themselves. Like, deep text software, which is in the Facebook, is one of these, tools that are actually deployed in the Facebook. AI-based automatic translation systems helps translation of languages to suit over 800 million users. So some people speak only in Spanish, but automatically it gets converted into English and so on. So interpretation in different languages are made possible through the artificial intelligence applications. Facebook has automatic image search engine powered by AI. It has bot API for messenger platform. So not only AI, in many other applications like your Apple phones or all kind of phones, your the Google applications, invariably they have actually one of the finest applications of AI and machine learning running them today, for which we are actually beneficiaries. The products are very, very complicated, and then all of us are beneficiaries of this technology. So if you look into the AI in the healthcare, so if you look at what healthcare applications are possible in the post-COVID opportunities, especially for our teaching fraternity, what all the things that we can really do here. So look into the the applications like so new generations of medical technology products are combinations of different technologies which lead to the crossing of borders between traditional categories of medical products such as medical devices and pharmaceutical products or human tissues. So the AI, requires the many, inputs, knowledge from solving medical problems or health related problems require inputs from biological nanotechnology, cognitive science, information technology, and material science because we need to develop products. What are the products that are possible? Tissue engineered products, gene therapy, drug device combinations, smart materials, minimally invasive surgery, computer assisted surgeries, active medical devices, artificial organs like artificial kidney, telemedicine, medical imaging, and so on. So these are all the products which are likely to come in an efficient way for the benefit of the humankind. So each of them basically requires different technologies mentioned above. The convergence of these technologies basically gives rise to prototype products. So in the national education policy, for which we are going to see a lot of changes in the coming days, the whole emphasis is basically on the development of products through interdisciplinary approach. So therefore, computer science is no longer remain computer science, but integration of the ideas of computer science from mechanical, civil, electrical, and whatnot, all physics, chemistry, biology, might really end up in a better product for the benefit of the people and society. So innovations in medical and biological science, if you look into that, in 1950s, artificial kidney was developed actually, X-ray, electrocardiogram, and so on. In 1960s, heart wall replacement took place. Okay. In 1970, computer-assisted tomography, artificial hip and knee replacements were performed. In 1980s, magnetic resonance imaging, MRI, laser surgery, vascular grafts, and so on. All these things were basically innovations that happened, and most of them were assisted by intelligent technologies. The application of AI in medicine has two main branches, virtual branch and physical branch. It's highly repetitive work, empower the doctors because these two are very important, any product that we are going to develop. Help them to deliver faster and more accurate decisions, augment the professionals, offering them expertise and assistance, replace personnel and staffing in medical facilities, particularly in administrative functions, managing the wait time and automating the schedules and so on. So deep learning devices will not replace the clinicians because they are required to really do many of the human related activities. So artificial intelligence in medicine is a virtual branch. So the virtual component is represented by machine learning, also called deep learning. So mathematical algorithms that improve the learning through experience. So in this case, there are three types. I'm going to talk about actually details about the more of mathematics in the next talk. Unsupervised learning, supervised learning, reinforcement learning. These are the three different cases that we are actually dealing, and products are being developed for varieties of applications. Especially reinforcement learning is very important because they use some sequence of rewards and punishments to form strategy for an operation in a specific problem space. Benefits of AI is that AI can definitely assist physicians, especially in medical imaging and clinical decision making for better clinical decisions, replace human judgment in certain functions, areas like healthcare, like radiology, up-to-date medical information from journals, textbooks, and clinical practices, experiences for specialist, they're able to give 24/7 availability, early diagnosis. This is one of the important things in the healthcare. Early diagnosis of many diseases is the need of the hour, for which we are not really well acquainted as of now, also with the advancement of so much of technology. So for example, if you are looking at the cancer detection, we are not really able to do that. Early detection of Alzheimer's disease, not many algorithms are available. Early detection of Parkinson's disease. We want to really know in advance whether such a trend is existing in the human body or not. So we need to have so much of data and volume to analyze them. And therefore, that AI and machine learning comes handy. That's the future research. Prediction of outcome of these diseases as well as treatment, feedback on treatment, and reinforcement of non-pharmacological management, and so on. So all these are potential benefits of the artificial intelligence in healthcare, which is going to dominate the healthcare industry in the 21st century. So we have the artificial intelligence. The physical branch means if you look at physical object, medical devices, sophisticated robots, and so on. All these are developments. Like these are all, different devices that we can really think of in a human system. So you can have a network, and you can put all sensors in the human body and collect all the data, for which already we have the watches. Actually, the Apple watches are able to take your heart rate and also your energy that you have burnt, okay, the temperature and so on. All these things are basically passed through Bluetooth to your machine, and that will get updated onto the server directly. So all of us basically have started using this technology right away. Then the surgery. Robotic surgery is becoming very common these days. So the imaging technique has advanced so much that they are able to see the minute, details about the particular organ inside the human body through a larger screen, and then program the robot to get into the particular coordinates and then make surgery. It's become very, very common and highly successful these days. Healthcare, there is a growth in the AI applications in healthcare. Basically, you can see that the healthcare industry is getting a lot of benefit from artificial intelligence shown here. Then interesting thing is that we want to look into the AI in future predictions that serves as very important components. So I just listed only about next 10 years. So what are the things that are likely to happen? So in a $1,000 PC is now approximately equal to the computational ability of the human brain. Computers are, that means I'm talking about 2029. So what are the likely things that are happen to? So computers in 2019 are largely invisible and are embedded everywhere in walls, tables, chairs, desks, clothing, jewelry, and bodies. So you're going to see small, tiny, thing which are not visible but which are there, like that. That's the kind of a computer that you can expect. A 3D virtual reality displays embedded in glasses and contact lenses as well as auditory lenses are used routinely as primary interface for communication with other persons, computers, the web, and virtual reality. Most interaction with computing is through gestures and two-way natural language spoken communication. Nano-engineered machines are beginning to be applied to manufacturing and process control. High-resolution 3D visual and auditory virtual reality and realistic all-encompassing tactile environments enable people to do virtually anything with anybody, regardless of physical proximity. So that means distance is not going to be in the criterion. Paper books or documents are rarely used, and most learning is constructed through intelligent, simulated software-based teachers. The vast majority of transactions include a simulated person. Automated driving systems are now installed in most roads. That means driverless cars we are seeing today. People are beginning to have relationship with automated personalities and use them as companions, teachers, caretakers, and lovers. So this what basically is all about. We are seeing ATMs, to dispense our cash and cash withdrawal and so on. So which were not there 10 years ago. So similarly, it is expected that each street in a locality may have a humanoid, a kind of a human robot where you can go and talk to it and you can share your experience, and it will give the answer solace, and it will give you just like a human being. So that's the kind of thing likely to happen in next 10 years down the line. So there are widespread of reports of computers passing the Turing test, although these tests do not meet the criteria established by the knowledge observers. So these are the things. But there are many challenges for 2049 and 2099, like Mars mission and so on. So a lot of predictions have already been made. So at the end of this talk, we need to really look at what are all really things that we can really look at. So potential challenges is what is the to develop development cost, integration issues like ethical issues, reluctance among the medical practitioners to adopt AI, fear of replacing humans. These are all some of the things which have already gone through. Data privacy and security. So we want to have security as another important component in which engineering people need to address. Mobile health applications and devices that uses AI. Lack of interoperability between all AI solutions means the data, the portability of the data from one system to another system, from one operating system to another operating system. Data exchange, need for continuous training by data from clinical studies, incentives for sharing data on the systems for further development and improvement of systems. Nevertheless, all parties in the healthcare systems and physicians, pharmaceutical companies and patients have the greater incentives to compile and exchange the information and regulations and so on. So these are the potential challenges that we want to really note.
Good morning.
If you look into the Indian scenario for AI for all of us, collaborations between medical and technical institutions definitely is likely to increase. We do not want it to be, compartmentalized like in silos. Remove firewall of clinical load and hope in IPR. So that means we want to really exchange the information freely. Government funding is needed, more intelligent and result oriented rather than UPAT and IPAT kind of a thing. That should not happen. We want to be more realistic. And current status of medical records, this is very poor actually in our country. Electronic health records, EHR it's called popularly, it's completely driven by the software, and software tools are used in all US hospitals, starting from the patient registration to all kind of medicines and applications administered, and also the surgery to the last point of surgical instrument cleaning and disposal. Everything is basically automated today, including the clinical test, the blood test and other things, and radiography with the picture archival communications. That means taking the digital picture of the human bodies, like digital x-rays or MRI or CT scan, is all digitalized and then can be communicated in a seamless way for interpretation and machine interpretation of such data. Are abundant applications which are right now available in some of the corporate hospital, but India is such a large country, need to really go to many hospitals in an affordable way. So data need to be captured in real time, and institutions should promote their transformation into intelligible process. New scientific and clinical findings should be shared through open source, and aggregated data must be displayed for open access. So this is something, data collection and data usage is also another important in medical domain. You need to have non-disclosure agreement in order to use that. Integration and interoperability, including ethical and legal and logistical concerns, are enormous. So that need to get simplified. Simplification, readability, and clinical utility of data sets. Each result must be questioned for its clinical applicability, aim of increasing their clinical value and decreasing health costs. This is very important. Electronic medical or health records are essential tools for personalized medicines, early detection and targeted preventions, and so on. So what we want to really understand here in this is that the artificial intelligence in the healthcare is going to really open up plethora of opportunities for us. Many of the devices that we use in India are actually being imported. So there is a scope for us to discover and invent our own medical equipments. Therefore, there is a need for synergy because many of us as basically faculty members in this faculty development program, the glimpses that I have really passed through over last 1 hour is to tell you that the future is so important for all of us that we need to really teach the students to develop products. Okay, and the future ranking and rating of institutions depend on how many commerciable patents that I can really file. And through these commercial, patentable, the patents that we are going to create need to, develop products for the utility in the Indian context and in the larger context at the world, on the world space. So therefore, the engineering education is going to change the way the new education policy in which the government of India has unfolded, recently, is going to get, attract the attention of all engineering institutions. They are going to implement in a very heavy way. So there is a need for all of us to get ourselves transformed into a teacher of superior authority in terms of knowledge. So friends, this is very important for us, that just scanning through these kind of slides in a very short time interval may not really give you, but the whole idea is that I wanted to give a bird's eye view of what is basically available for us to really deal with, and how we need to really reform ourselves as a great teachers. We want to be teachers with authority in the subject, and we want to be the teachers with creative thinking, sitting on the cutting edge problem. This is the need of the hour today. If you really want to implement new education policy in your institution, you yourself need to check that how good you are in a scale of 1 to 10 in terms of authoritarian knowledge and authoritarian skill to deliver these kind of applications. So therefore, the future scenarios are very important for all of us. Therefore, be it any part of engineering, be it civil or mechanical, there are wide varieties of branches. And recently, government of India and ACT, sanctioned AI and machine learning as a separate, BE program. So that doesn't mean that the computer science is going to get outdated. Computer science definitely need to produce engineers in terms of compilers, in terms of assemblers, in terms of computer architecture. They have their own thing, but the machine learning is basically dealing with the development of thinking machines, as I already told you, that this thinking is very important. This thinking is, retrieving a piece of information which is stored in terms of knowledge. So how we are going to really retrieve those things are very, very important for us. The second thing that I wanted to, which is not available in the slide, is the environment. So the environment is becoming, very, very shaky for all of us. So therefore, what we want to really understand here is the whole idea is that the job opportunities and the projects and products are needed to protect our environment. So
एक बार ना
what we
नेचर
have
बास्केट
seen
था
is
वहाँ
the
दिल्ली में,
tsunamis.
गोदरेज का नेचर बास्केट, उसमें हमने
These
एक एप्पल
tsunamis,
जो है 125 रुपए खरीदा है। अरे एप्पल कह रही हूँ, मैंगो। एप्पल तो बहुत महंगा महंगा मिलता है।
there is some crosstalk. So the environmental safety is most critical for us. So therefore, there will be definitely a collaborative work is needed to protect the environment. So therefore, cyber physical systems coming into existence. So that means we want to collect the data to predict the tornadoes, the hurricanes, the tsunamis, and whatnot, the temperature variations, the variations in the vegetation, and all these things. And basically, we want to really control them, accessing the data at any point of time. So millions of bytes of data need to be accessed in real time in few seconds, and we need to be able to generate solutions. We want to have such kind of physical systems collected from distributed geographical sensors across the country, across the world, need to predict the warnings and also safety measures. So these are all some of the things that are with us. So therefore, healthcare and environment, they form the crux of all future development in the 21st century. Maybe some of the entertainment technology, I don't say that they are going to stop. So we want to really have more entertainment, more comfort, and so on. But the technology that is available today is good enough for the next 10 years, because the deployment of newly released technology, how many of us are basically using the complete utility is seen. We are not really using. For example, if you take the smartphone, have we exploited all its compatibility, all its applications? No, we are using only whatever is needed, but it can really do many things. So that means even for next 10 years, we have so much of space to really deploy them to meet our expectations and so on. But We are living in a digital multimedia society. Without our knowledge, now we got ourselves, caught into a digital society today, and it's a multimedia society because you can, communicate through voice, you can communicate through video, you can communicate through text, and so on. So you have access to your applications. You want to file an applications to a job, you need to log in online and then enter it. You will be called for an interview, then you have a video interview, you have a conference calls, you have video calls. So that means you're managing everything without physical connectivity. So therefore, the virtual connectivity itself is serving. Now, what not? When we were driven to teach the students last year on online mode, we just started using online. The simplest being is that reading out the PPT to the students. So that's not the total delivery of proper education. To meet the outcome based education, we need to use tools and technologies to deliver the talks to the students so that they get interested. They can really do many things. You're going to create them with a thinking capability. So therefore the technology is available, and therefore even though pandemic is there, we were able to at least control our work in a proper way. What about the layman? If you look into layman, the land records are digitized. He can really check whether he has paid the tax or not, whether his crops are properly being monitored or not. So that means even what kind of pesticides and manures that he can really always gets kind of information from the web here. So therefore everything is basically digitized, and we are in a multimedia society. No other way. The seamless access of data and processing of this data, which is abundant, because the data, all of you know that it's a very simple trivial thing, that it's a digital data which is stored in the memory, and it's in the cloud today. And communication transfer of this data in a large chunk, we have, thanks God, 4G, 5G is coming here. So communication is not a bottleneck today. But once this data is just bombarded onto your machine, interpreting the right data from such a large data is basically the need of the hour, because we have the data growing at trillion bytes. Data is getting accumulated every day. Trillion bytes of data. Data is basically getting created. So therefore, there is a need for intelligence to look at the data, and we need to learn from the data. So therefore, learning from data is most critical, and therefore AI and machine learning are very, very important for us to build such applications. So we have entered a period of significant change driven by limited resource base, changing societal needs, new technologies, and new competitors. And these are brutally slowed down by the pandemic such as this. We never actually we remember, because this the century is something which we need to remember for the whole century. The most critical challenge before us is to develop the capacity for change. So one is infrastructure, another is manpower. Manpower development cannot happen overnight. So that means if you learn AI and machine learning overnight, you cannot really become good enough to really provide solution. So therefore you need to have an authority on the subject, command on the subject, and need to have a practical exposure and have the capability to present these to the student community and enable them. So therefore in a system that empowerment of the faculty is the most important need for any technical education. Creating such kind of infrastructure like deployment of different tools to study, understand, and gain the knowledge is also another important thing. So what we need to do, we as an institution, there is a need for a concerted effort to understand the important traditions of the past, the challenges of the present, and the possibilities of the future. So that means all these things are very important. That what I touched is that I looked into the past, present, and the possibility of the future. So you can really build, you can bring rapid changes into the system and build a great society. So those are very important components, as far as the AI is, considered as a benchmark. So going backwards, artificial intelligence and machine learning, they go together. Machine learning, which we are going to see some of the mathematical dynamics in the next talk, will not really give the reasoning why it is actually giving an output. So we as a human being, we collect the information through different wide varieties of means and store them. Okay. And whenever we encounter a query, we retrieve them and present them. So be it mathematics, be it a text, we can write it, be it a speech, we present it, and be it a video, we show it actually how. So that means all the three combinations we present as an output. How we can really do that? How we can give an explanation, a video output. So the artificial intelligence part here is that gathering the data, processing the data in real time, and so on. So therefore, we have fast supercomputing systems available today. So that means we have larger memories, high-speed CPUs are available. The beauty is that they are affordable. The cost is affordable compared to 10 years back, what they were very, very expensive. So therefore, building high performance computing system is not a big thing today. Secondly, the cloud computing has come handy. You develop your code, develop all your applications, take your data, and then you subscribe to the cloud computing on a payment basis. How much time that you would want, how much computing time that you would want to really subscribe. You pay money for that and get it actually implemented, tested on that. So that kind of a thing that you don't need to own a machine. You can always perform this on a cloud. And any kind of tool that you would want to use for your research is available as the state-of-the-art research. Now, friends, in a mission critical applications like this, we will be using all open source, codes in order to implement them. But proprietary tools have come handy in recent times. We are going to see that TensorFlow or PyTorch. So they are going to be the kind of tools which are widely deployed to build machine learning or deep learning applications. So therefore, artificial intelligence in the past was basically reserved for gaming applications. Then in the present context, we used it for surgical applications and so on. Imaging and image interpretations were done, and futuristic applications basically require much more sophisticated, detailed deployment of AI and machine learning. And in this case here, the artificial intelligence part is going to give the reason why actually the output is all about. While machine learning basically gives an answer, this is the data that I'm inputting, and therefore the black box is your machine learning architecture. It takes the data and gives an output data, and the artificial intelligence part basically gives you the reason why actually the data is coming and why actually data is all about, what is it, and how to interpret the data. So combined effort of machine learning and AI, they always go together. So this is about the whole idea that I wanted to present to you in terms of artificial intelligence. So slightly going away from this, when you look into this lecture now, that you see that there are plenty of opportunities in medical or healthcare applications, environmental applications, and also some of the entertainment applications. In terms of entertainment applications, we have virtual reality, extended virtual reality, augmented reality, and extended virtual reality. These are the three important things that are going to really help us to develop some kind of applications which are very, very interesting for gaming applications. So therefore, the holograms already proved by both Microsoft and also Google. You have seen that in plenty of WhatsApp applications, that they are going to be there everywhere. Then speaking in one language, and there are different people coming from different languages. They do not know English. I speak in English. In real time, you need to transfer this speech into different languages in real time. So that means this comes under multilingual, multimodal speech transmission, speech recognition, speech analysis. So this is another great area powered by deep learning architecture. So therefore, you need to take the speech, and it's not an easy task, but it's already in reality. So like we definitely take a look into the speech processing applications. Natural language understanding is another important AI-driven application product that we need to do. In a country like India, it's not easy to really apply this AI for local languages because English is easier, the local languages is not that easier. So therefore, concentrated effort is needed to really protect your language. So AI-powered natural language, contents and question and answers in a native language by a powerful engine. These are also very important for us. Then lastly, the teaching learning methods need to be powered by machine learning and AI together. So in a typical, environment like a university environment or classroom in an institution kind of environment, there are 4,000 students, and there are tests which are conducted, 5 tests in a calendar semester. So many data you are going to create. The ERP package that you are using need to be intelligent in future. It cannot be a dummy package. So therefore, again, intelligence basically gets into that. So every act that we do basically, get, a component of AI and machine learning. So as I said, AI basically is able to give you reasoning, but machine learning is something which we are not touched now, is able to really process this data, large data, and give an output which is meaningful. So therefore, machine learning and AI, they need to go hand in hand. So AI basically gives an interpretation of the output, but machine learning takes large chunks of data. Then coming back to this, the data, because the knowledge that you are going to save, the knowledge that we have acquired, through varieties of, means right from our childhood days, we have that memory with us now. Who was our teacher, who taught the first standard to the place we were born and were playing? We recall all those things even today, even after 50, 60, 70, 80 years, those memories time and again come. How this is possible? Because there is a memory internally that I'm going to show you, that this memory is, we are able to store that knowledge and still keep on accumulating the knowledge again and again. And we retrieve them effortlessly. This is the cognitive capability of the human brain. This is a fantastic thing even animals do have. Okay. So therefore, the cognitive capability that all of us possess is the knowledge that we acquired. So this knowledge acquisition is in the form of pictures, like images, in the video, okay, sentences or whatever, all kinds of inputs that we. So all the knowledge that we are, storing in the brain, we store that as a kind of a signal. So friends, we need to understand one important thing between the digital computer processing and also the human brain is, the human brain basically takes signals as an input. So all of you are listening to me through an audio. This audio is a continuous signal over an interval of time. It's a speed signal. So that means the brain, you are hearing it, your ear accepts the continuous signal, and a region in the brain basically interprets that signal, and that is stored as a piece of information. Even your video is basically a signal which is basically transmitted to the retina, to the rods and cones, and they go as through the optic nerve and stored as a signal. So that means all of us, even animals, all human living beings basically take signal, a continuous signal over an interval of time as an input to process. That's the knowledge that we are storing as a continuous signal, but it's a discrete signal over an interval of time. But the computer cannot store that. We need to digitize them. Therefore, it is binary. So the data that we are trying to process on the machine is basically the digital data. So the data need to be given to the machine, and this data need to be given in terms of chunks. Chunks of data need to be given to the machine, and this is what I call it as learning from the data. So machine learning basically requires abundant data to be shown to it in order to learn and prepare it for giving an output or a processing. So how we process the input from such a knowledge from discrete signals is effortless, but enormous amount of computing is needed in order to make the machine understand a huge amount of data and give an output which is meaningful. So therefore, that part is basically machine learning. So to this end, actually, we looked into the data as an important tool today, and AI basically supports reasoning and also gives a complete ability, why it has taken such kind of decision and interpretation and so on is possible by AI. So AI and machine learning go together. So when it comes to algorithm to support the theme of this FTP, the algorithms basically need to be developed for the machine learning applications. How you are going to really look at that, how machine learning basically works. So what I have planned for all of you is looking into the complete the mathematical analysis of a typical 1 or 2 networks to take you to the dynamics of mathematics, because you can write the algorithm if the mathematical steps are known to you. We are not doing any heuristics here. We want to be more approximate. We want to be more accurate. So we call it PAC, probably approximately correct model. Okay, so this is the kind of PAC model that we want to really look at and see that at the end, towards the end of the next talk, it is basically the deep learning applications, how they are going to really change the way that you are looking and so on, and what are the limitations of deep learning is also completed actually. So this is all about the first talk about the general outlay of the artificial intelligence and the importance of the data and how we can really use AI to interpret, to make our decisions much more effective, and possible applications in the future in the industry. Like industry will drive a lot of environmental products and healthcare products are going to dominate, and education and other things are also going to be very important. And the other futuristic applications like the mission space applications are going to create huge amount of impact on AI and machine learning, and all the sensors that we are using are going to create more productive applications. Probably we will not have these kind of computers. Quantum computing will replace the existing computing systems to take care of the speed and the data with which you are going to process. Probably another 20-30 years down the line, you have different computing systems altogether. So this is all about I wanted to share with you over the last 1.5 hours time. Over to you, Dr. Rupa. Now let's have some interactions if there are questions on this topic. And I start actually the next session after some break. So we'll have a lot of time to look into the neural computing part, machine learning, and data interpretations, and so on, the curse of dimensionality, and the learning, the characteristics of multi-layer perceptrons or radial basis functions, and so on. We look into that. So how basically these two are clubbed together in terms of algorithms and architectures. Over to you, Dr. Rupa.
Thank you, sir. It was really informative. Dear participants, if you have any doubts, you can take the clarifications from the sir.
Hello, sir.
Yeah. Yes,
Hello,
please.
sir.
Yeah.
This is Dr. Somaya Madkam from Force Club Manager. It was really good session. I learned a lot. Can you throw some light on ethical AI? I want to work on that. Ethical AI.
So this is, the ethical AI is one of the greatest danger actually, that we are looking into that. So what is basically predicted in 2049, probably during that time, you will have the machines, because you are allowing the machines to self-learn. So already many of the software components, at the lower level, they're able to learn on their own from the experience and the data. So the machine, the human mind that we are going to create is able to understand everything, both from speech and also video, from the text. All these things, the machine read and understand it, creates its own, way of interpretation. But it is feared that, one fine day, this, the knowledge, the self-learning capability may, outperform the human thinking, and these, machines may not really oblige you. There's also another important threat that, the people are worried about. Do we really, get into that kind of a thing, because the way that we are advancing and making things, replicating a person through holograms, and, the way that we are looking into the extended virtual reality and allowing the machines to develop their own thinking, develop their own intelligence, it's quite possible that the machines in the future may definitely have high level of intelligence compared to the human being, because you are allowing the data. See, for example, even today the Facebook and Google, they are collecting your data. The data that's being collected, like the machines themselves collect the data, and most importantly, health data. We are transmitting all our health data in future also, because sensors are there implanted. So like that, in now the recent patient studies I have come across through a doctor, that there is a small sensor that is connected, to just, you can just put that sensor onto your wrist, actually onto your arm, and then allow it, actually put a bandage there. It will collect the blood sugar at every 10 every 30 minutes. It will collect the blood sugar, and you keep on eating and work, and therefore for 3 days it will transmit the data to the server without your knowledge through Bluetooth. So that means you are allowing your health data also to move allow. So therefore the person's identity is known, the health records are known. So therefore the machine not only understands the other important things, but your health condition of typical people also. So if its intelligence level goes beyond and is able to really, it might not oblige you. Right now it is obliging, but if you are allowing the machine to really exhibit its own intelligence and then take decisions, then in a controlled way we are doing it. But sometimes if it goes out of the bound, there is a threat. So that means there are the possibilities of this kind of technology in the future is that you need to really have another branch of engineering dealing with this kind of the difficulties arising out of this kind of technology, and ethical issues and misuse of this kind of technology for wrongful decisions. Like already we have several viruses coming in, and therefore we are investing money to save our machines and data, hacking and so on. So all these things are the other bad side of the technology. So therefore ethically we need to be there. So in outcome based education, so ethical practice is also one of the important component, right? The outcome based education, there's a weightage given for professional ethics. So therefore we need to be more, as an end user, I need to be more conscious about the society, the people, that we need to believe that we are in a coexistence, and therefore we should not cause any harm. So personally, ethics are very important. It is to be self-imposed, and we need to follow it on one hand. The drawback of this technology is, as I told you, that in future we need to have restraint on the ill effect of the machine, going against our will, is also another important research area focus for the future. Over to you.
Thanks a lot, sir.
Any other question? So this is basically kind of, yeah, please. So if there are no questions, and can we take a break now?
How many minutes we are going to break, sir?
So we are supposed to
Sir,
start at
11:15 we are going to start, sir.
Well, we can start at 11:15. Yeah,
Hello?
so it can, no problem, till 1:45 or whatever. So no problem. So
Hello, sir.
Shall we start at 11:15?
Hello, sir. Am
Yeah.
I audible to you?
Yeah. Yes. So
Sir, am I audible?
Yeah, you are audible. Hello.
Am I audible, sir?
Yes.
Okay, 11:15. Okay.
So shall we start at 11:15?
Thank you, sir. Thank you for the wonderful session. It was really a great start to this FDP. And dear participants, we will be having a short break, and please join at 11:15. So Nagabhushan sir is, yes, sir, 11:15, sir.
Okay, so
Is
we'll
it
just,
okay, sir?
yeah, that's okay, fine, no problem, no problem. We'll start at 11:15. Okay, thank you.
Is it fine, sir, 11:15?
Yeah, it's fine, no problem.
Okay. Okay, sir. Thank you. And dear participants. Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Dear participants, please join the meeting at 11:15. You can have a short break and we'll continue with the same importance of AI by Nagabhushan sir.